So when we heard about the Bhopal gas tragedy, it used to come to us one day later because the newspapers used to come to Calcutta first, and from Calcutta used to come. So we heard on a day later, oh, ऐसा कुछ gas tragedy हो गया, कुछ 40 लोग मर गए. When you finally hear the outcome कि भोपाल में gas tragedy और 20,000 लोग मर गए.
It is sad to see that people are still seeking justice. That is a sad thing, because justice is something that should be delivered.
You know, when I read it, I was like mind blown by it because I knew about the gas leak, I knew about the tragedy, but I didn't know about this perspective. And when that happened, I was like, yeah, there would have been some people who would have risen up to the occasion, of course.
As a teenager, I remember going to the coach and looking at the reservation form to see how many, it used to be all male, female written, and see how many female were teenagers over there. कि आपने को किससे line मारने का chance मिलेगा. Jam-packed in the railway compartment, and then if you had to want to wipe your face, this is the only place in the world you have to ask the guy standing beside you कि भाई मैं अपने pocket से खर्चे से निकालूँ कि नहीं निकालूँ? हाँ, because he thinks you're touching him out completely. Like भाई मैं निकाल रहा हूँ, हाँ निकाल. पहुँच लिया, हाँ मैं वार रहा वापस रख ले.
Guys, welcome to the Hindu, everyone.
Thank you.
Tell me, Bhopal gas strategy. I was not born back then. Babil wasn't. You're 1 year old, as far as I know.
I was also not there.
You're also not there. We have read about it, and it's a case that had dragged on for a long time. There's a lot of public anger that had stayed on. But the angle that you have found and picked on, what was the journey? When did you discover this? That the story of the Bhopal Junction and how these people came together? So share
the writer of the show, Ayush Gupta, he had this one pager that he brought to me, and we were introduced by a mutual contact, and he brought that one pager, and when I read it, I was like mind blown by it because I knew about the gas leak, I knew about the tragedy, but I didn't know about this perspective. And when that happened, I was like, yeah, there would have been some people who would have risen up to the occasion, of course, and it was just so shocking that no one speaks about them. And I remember someone telling a story of such a tragic night, one of the darkest nights in Indian history, with a lens of hope, with a lens of courage, with a lens of the human spirit. And I thought that was fantastic, and this definitely needs to be taken to the audiences. And that's where it started, and we are here today.
Can you have any memories of 84? It was a very tense year in our country, like not just for Bhopal, but also politically.
There were a lot of things. I mean, 83 was a cricket match, and then 84 was a disaster year for us in every sense of the word. But yeah, I remember because I was in Jamshedpur at that time, Bihar. At that time it was Bihar, now it's...
which is also an industrial town as Bhopal is, right?
Very rightly said. It's run by the Tata Steel, and the telco factories are there. So we are used to getting up to the sound of the sirens and to the to have the shift change, and we used to see the slag dump and all happen at that time. So when we heard about the Bhopal gas tragedy, it used to come to us one day later because the newspapers used to come to Calcutta first, and from Calcutta used to come. So we heard on a day later, oh, ऐसा कुछ gas tragedy हो गया, कुछ 40 लोग मर गए. Is what we first heard. And then slowly the news started trickling in. No, it is not 40 yaar, kuch 400 log mar gaye, then 4,000 log mar gaye, and finally, over a period of time, because the news came in trickle, that was, I think I'm realizing it as I'm speaking with you right now. When the whole impact of the tragedy doesn't hit you together now, you don't get as affected by it. When it comes to you in trickling thing. Acha, Bhopal gas ka hai, Bhopal gas. So usme na, when you finally hear the outcome कि भोपाल में gas tragedy और 20,000 लोग मर गए, has a different impact altogether as opposed to 300 लोग मरे, actually 400 लोग मरे, फिर एक हफ्ते के बाद सर कुल मिला के मुझे लगता है 2,000 मरे. So you are saying अभी भोपाल gas tragedy पर तो सुन लिया यार, 40 लोग मरे थे ना कुछ, and you don't really understand the impact of it. It's only when I did this series and that I realized कि oh my God, it is indeed the biggest industrial disaster in the world. It is, and and we are not reacting enough to it. Now, why should we react to it even now? Is that something like this should never happen again? Everybody responsible for something like that happening. The small misdemeanors, the small carelessness, the not understanding the importance of who's coming in and who's going out and who we are sending out of the country has resulted in something that nobody wants to talk about. Our disaster is bigger than Chernobyl.
Correct.
Right, it's bigger than 9/11, right? But then look at the amount of knowledge that people don't even talk about it. And I hope with the the brave approach of Yash Raj as well as our director, that this story of Indian and the approach that he's taken of showing people's courage at a time when you're faced with actually poison in the air and death and not enough. Nobody knew how to deal with it. When you have COVID, mask pehen lo, haath pair dho lo, ghar jaake aap safe ho. But here nobody knows how to deal with it. And in that moment and that night of the disaster, the sheer heroism that you get to see from common people was brilliant. I mean, for me, that reinforcement that it's not a small case where 40 people died, to knowing what actually happened so many years later is actually a circle closing.
Because you have any memories of 84 that year?
Yeah, I did hear about the tragedy then, but I got to know more about it when I did my first film, Bhopal Express. Yes. That's when I actually got to know the gory details, and it was so sensitive then that we couldn't shoot in Bhopal. We had to shoot in Hyderabad for Bhopal because it was still a hot topic.
When was this?
97, 98.
It was still a hot topic, huh?
Yeah. So, we were advised not to go there. So we shot in Hyderabad for Bhopal. But now, of course, it's all faded away. I mean, next generations have come in, so things like that. So it is sad to see that people are still seeking justice in spite of knowing about all this. That is a sad thing, because justice is something that should be delivered somehow, even if it takes time. That's my belief. And and plus the fact that so many stories are unknown. I mean, this story of ours, Railwaymen, of an organization which is the biggest in the world, with the largest number of employees in the world, with the networking which is mind-boggling, which has got, and to safely reach passengers from one place to the other, is if you were to just have a graphic of the railway network and see, it's like you wouldn't want to see it, because it's like a maze. So and a few good men there. I mean, not the entire railway, thing coming together and forgetting everything, and the valor shown is something equivalent to what soldiers do, what true heroes do. So, but it's got completely under the carpet, and we just hope that somehow the love and respect for such people is reignited, because more often than not we tend to forget them, and that is something that should not happen, and hopefully that will keep it alive, this series of ours.
So tell me, of the four characters, he plays a loco pilot, he plays the station master, he plays the GM of the Central Railways, and he has the most interesting character, like in terms of what he's doing in the show, and I wouldn't spoil much here. Tell me a little bit, how many of them were directly based on, let's say, real figures? How many are composite?
None of them are based on real figures. Everyone is like, there are multiple stories, like say, hundreds of stories we heard made the station master. Tons of stories we heard made Imad's character. Like different anecdotes made him. And obviously Divyendu, there were some anecdotes that we heard about, and also Divyendu, technically, I mean, our perspective to put that wild card in there was to put a common man there who identifies as a railwayman, but is not a railwayman by a profile of the job. He identifies like that, like every other Indian does with the Indian Railways, because you're so closely associated with it, you've traveled with it, you've got memories with it. But the idea was to put one man who's the common man in there, and to represent what someone who's not bound by duty would do.
Well, tell me about building your character, Imad. And was there? Did you spend time with people in Bhopal? Did you go there?
Yeah. So first, I think Shiv and YRF, just as soon as I got the script, it was like this thick script, right? 2 thick pages. From the first go, right? I would go to YRF, I think almost every day to workshop with Vikas sir, and I would have dialect training with Akshay sir. They're two different. So I would have like workshopping about the character from
Vikas
one
Kumar is
person.
the actor who's in Kalapani.
Right.
Yeah. So he workshopped.
And Akshay
with him.
Verma was my dialect coach. So
So
we'd
they are
have
two different individuals.
yeah.
I thought same guy, two names.
Actor thodi. So Vikas sir would teach me would workshop me for the script and for the character, and I would have Bhopali dialect training from Akshay sir, and that went on, and then my individual research about what Bhopal was like then, and the history and the people over there. So I went to Bhopal, I went to the factory as well, and but to take all of that intellectually and to sit with that, the information and let it become feeling, that took a little while. Then with that, when I went on set and there were these amazing actors and this incredible set, I knew at that point that all I have to do is leave all of this preparation behind and just let go, and trust that nature will take care of it.
Right. Mindset, tell me a little bit about Rati Pandey and what went into building him. And he kind of embodies the spirit, like the good side of the Indian Railways, like in the show. And he's kind of a hero, but it's also a very colorful character for you to do as much as you're there in the show.
There is only a good side of the Indian.
Yeah.
There's no other side.
When Rati is introduced in the story, he's not aware of the gravitas of the situation.
Yeah.
He's just come there to, as you've seen, check out the railway station, and then the impact of what has happened in Bhopal hits him. As an actor, when you read a script, you try to, for me, I try to anchor one scene in the film that will be me, that I know I can identify with completely, and then I try to spread the personality around that particular scene. So for me, when I read the whole script, of course, there's this scene where I talk to the rest of the railwaymen and try to motivate them to do my bidding, and it was a beautifully written, set of lines that made it look like I was evolving as a person as I was speaking those lines. It was not somebody who knew exactly what has to be done and go there and try to motivate people. It was just somebody who was voicing out his conscience, and it turns out to be something that people relate to and resonate with and march. So I figured that is my moment of truth, that is where Rati Pandey is what it's all about. And it was a wonderful place to be, because in today's world you can't give speeches that are blood, hell and fury and expect people to follow to their deaths, literally. So the beauty and the finesse with which those scenes and dialogues were written was something that I built my entire Rati Pandey around. So if I knew that is going to be the most emotional moment in the film for him, then how do you start the story, start the character, and how do you end it? That's how I kind of looked at the character, and I wanted to make him as real. Also, I knew that these Maharathis will be there, and they will be bringing in a hell of a lot of realism. Right. So I was with a bunch of literally novices, who are basically, they're not experienced actors, so they come from different schools. So to keep everybody on the realm of reality, and he did a great job of helping me in understanding that that's the realism that we're going for. And because he's seen, in fact, we shot ours before we started film. So we actually set the standard over there to keep it, as real as possible. So all that responsibility was there, and the best way I realized to keep it correct is to keep it real, and so that's how it.
Where were his bit shot?
So we built this set in Mumbai, in the Mumbai University in Kalina, and we built a massive railway station with like trains moving and everything. So his bits were also shot there. The entire railway station was also, Bhopal Junction was also built there. Itarsi was also built there. So was the slum and all the other multiple sets and trains and bogies and etc. Yeah.
I want to discuss the scene where Divyendu and Kekesa meet for the first time at the station. And there's a very nice beat to beat that happens between both of you. I distinctly remember a moment where he says something and you touch your ear. After he kind of...
so basically, they haven't watched the series.
I see.
But I'll remind them.
Thank you.
I'll remind them. There's basically he comes and he's creating a ruckus at the station, and you go and tap him. He says, "Kaun hai in charge?" And you tap him and you say, हमें स्टेशन मास्टर बोलिए, and then he says कि आज रात मुझे आपके तिजोरी, and basically there's this moment where he says, you know, please मुझे करने दीजिए क्योंकि वो आ रहा है, and at one point you just you know, look at him with doubt and you touch your ear and you start walking towards the sandook.
That happened, just happened.
Yeah.
It was not planned.
No, but that scene is really good. Like, I mean, it's like a banter because he's trying to you know, he's trying to like tell you what's going to happen, but you're
Figure him out,
yeah,
really.
Yeah, and he doesn't expect that the station master is going to be this personality because he thought कि यार
That too, of course,
he's like, he thought I'm like, you know, the king of this of what I do, and you know, I'll easily be able to get to, but then he knows that he's got a challenge in front of him.
Do you think anything specific you remember doing scenes with him?
I remember everything.
Is this particular scene you're saying?
Yeah, this or any from something else?
I remember everything.
No, something about, let's say, his method or craft, like you noticed?
That there's no method and there's no craft.
It's
That's how I
it's
play, I
just,
don't know.
Yeah, being there, being the individual. You can't say that, you know, ye cheez ya wo cheez. It's a constant flow of who you are, you know, as a being. So yeah, I won't be able to
throughout
pinpoint
his thing, you know, what I noticed was that in his eyes there's a streak of, what do I call it, naughtiness or whatever.
A mischief, yeah.
Mischief is always there, which kind of helped me, which is never planned again. It was there within him when he was playing that character, you know, and it helped me to register it, you know, and say that he's up to some mischief. I don't know what it is. So that also helps, you know, that's how it kind of collaborates, because these things are things that you can't plan or design. You look at a person and suddenly he's doing something and suddenly you feel that there's something about him which is not exactly there. And for a station master who is so aware of his surroundings, it would be stupid for him not to recognize it or register it, to make it authentic and believable. It's as simple as that. So once we sort of let ourselves into the scene, things happen.
Yeah.
Things just happen.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
and like, for example, I didn't know that I did this. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, these kind of things happen, and the magic lies there, I think. I don't think it's. I think,
And for me, where the ground becomes shaky is when you see someone so sthir in front of you, right? So usually in his life as a trained bandit, you know, you meet station masters and you're like, but here's a guy who's very sthir. So when he's so sthir, you can't be so sthir, right? So you have that glitches coming, and this guy is observing you, and you can't help it. I mean, because there is a constant gaze at you, which is coming from a very pure place of duty and, you know, and of being. So yeah, those glitches, so mischief was obviously the part of the character, because
And he
he's
brought it out
up
very
to,
well. That's what I meant to say.
something. But the glitches is when someone is constant and you're not. That disturbs you as a character, or in real life as a person also. You know, if you're trying to, you know, kuch karne ka aisa, which is not this thing. So yeah.
And as far as the station master goes, he's a guy who gives him a test.
Yeah.
A person like that, who gives a test which is elementary but yet difficult, would actually, when he finds something off in a person, would kind of test him out, because he's not a guy who would. So you've got to keep that continuity of your character, of the person that you're playing, which is why in between I would say Pani Piyoge. Suddenly, all of a sudden, it's just a test to show, take him off if he's preparing something, and then so that all these things happened there. It's not planned. It's just that since we did the scene together and he solved that thing and I started liking Imad, that's when it kind of seeped in to me. Okay, now I would not kind of look at everything just plain. I would kind of test people out, because then he's again a nerdy as far as his obsessive nature of, you know, being particular about things, protocol, a lot of things as a station master.
And that's a give and take, because like you said, Pani Piyoge, to, you know, maybe test him or, you know, rattle him a little. This guy must be doing this to people, you know, saying an odd thing. But वो सामने से अगर आपको मिलता है, so you don't know, you've never been on the receiving end, so to say, you know, you plan your shit. But Yeah, these moments they
पानी पियोगे?
चाय पियो.
चाय पियोगे?
चाय
हाँ.
पियोगे.
नहीं, अभी मैंने एग्जांपल किया था.
हाँ,
कि
precisely.
पानी
मतलब
खाता
जो भी है वो, but that shakes you, right? कि क्यों? You know, मन में तो ये आएगा ना, क्यों पूछा? You know, इसके पीछे क्या है? Because he comes from a place जो कि बड़ा insecure सा एक place है, you know. So you would always like kindness also you would doubt. चाहे वो किसी भी intention से आ, you would doubt that.
On a broader note, the Indian Railways, it's considered the bloodline of this country, and all our lives have been linked in some way or the other. Is there a personal, let's say, memory or a phase of your life, or anything, any detail
All childhood
that you can very distinctly comes to mind that you relate to the railways, not necessarily related to the show, but something to do with the railways?
Always, yeah.
All
For
right.
me, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
In fact, yeah, I mean, I still remember we normally catch the window, you know, and kind of as kids are outside. This is the passing of terrain, and knowing that I think we have reached this state. Now we've crossed this state. You know, you're commented by the elders. And the fact that suddenly the diesel engine has turned into a steam engine.
Steam engine.
And suddenly your face is blackened because it's
Yeah.
it's steam now coming. That cold.
These
is
guys
coming
won't
now.
even know what they're talking about, man.
वो experience नहीं है actually.
तो suddenly वो पूरा का पूरा काला यहाँ. Not realizing what happened as a child.
नहाते थे तो पूरा मतलब
पूरा-
कोयला निकलता था उससे. It was amazing.
So it suddenly has changed into a steam engine. But मतलब ये state आ गया. यहाँ पे वो electric.
Because they don't have it's not electrified.
तो वैसा कुछ. And the travel used to be like 2 nights. You know, like one day you start, that night,
Correct.
next whole day, next night, next morning you reach. So such things, and we used to look forward to it. And डब्बे डुब्बे होते थे. खाना वाना already पका हुआ, and you know, catching the top berth.
Yeah.
You know, and as kids playing there, all that stuff. I mean, it's fantastic. I think train journey is the best.
Right.
बाकी कोई
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
no comparison.
For me, when I was really young, so dad used to be in government this thing, and उनको LTC करके एक चीज मिलता है साल का एक चीज.
Yeah.
So
Leave travel
from
allowance.
Delhi,
Yeah.
and every employee would like
Concession form, yeah, the concession form.
to have the maximum this thing. So from Delhi to Madras that time, हम लोग राजधानी ट्रेन आ गया था, and there you travel in that AC coupe,
Right,
first
right,
class.
right.
And that just used to be so beautiful because you go inside, you have curtains there and everything, you have meals coming, and it used to be so much fun, warmth inside, you know, train ka kaise hai. Yeah, very very sweet memories of वो छोटा सा घर बना लेना
Right,
अंदर
right,
अपना
for
ही
those
एक
hours,
उसको
for those few hours, yeah.
has such a warm feeling to it.
Manasi, you have something?
Well, I have phenomenal memories. Like my life used to revolve around our holidays and getting that, you know, the concession form from the school signs so they can get the tickets and everything. And then the journey started much before the journey actually started. You know, the prep at home for the food. And आज शाम को ये आज हम दोपहर को 2 बजे बैठेंगे, शाम को 6 बजे ये खाएंगे, सुबह ये खाएंगे, फिर शाम दूसरे दिन तक ये खराब हो जाएगा तो ये खाएंगे, all that. And then as a teenager, I remember going to the coach and looking at the reservation form to see how many, it used to be all male, female written, and see how many female were teenagers over there. कि आपने को किससे लाइन मारने का चांस मिलेगा. You know? We used to do that. Check it out. Oh, F16. Oh, nice. That's so.
That's a good scene in a movie.
Yeah. So I'll tell you another good scene anyway. So, and then you go into that coupe, right? And then somehow all the food that we've made for our trip of 4 people was never as tasty as the guy the neighbor was eating. For some reason. फिर वो share हो जाता था, you know, कि आप हमारे यहाँ से रोटी खा लो, आप लोग इडली खा लो, ये. And the food used to be so. And then you formed relationships, you know, and you found some friends.
Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we were in that train without mobile phones, without nothing for 2.5 days. और हमको 1 सेकंड के लिए भी बोर नहीं लगता था because experienced ones used to say, अब हम पहुंच रहे रौल किला, अब यहाँ पे ये खाना अच्छा मिलता है, या यहाँ पे ये चाय अच्छा मिलता है, या यहाँ पे ये भेलपुरी अच्छा मिलता है, या you go to Vijayawada and then you want to put a scene from the film. So the bloody train used to go and stop at Walter, which was Visakhapatnam railway station. When there the engine used to change and we used to go from the opposite direction and used to reach in the afternoon. So that was like everybody's excited because now the meals are going to come, you know, and the bloody meal comes and you come to this junction, it's called the junction at that time, and there'll be one train beside you, then we will be here, and then the food will come. Bro, I'm telling you, this is exactly how it used to happen. So we are eating food, okay, and suddenly the train beside you, which has been there for 1 hour, it'll even go. And people somehow always thought the best place to go to the toilet was when the train is stopped at the railway station.
Ouch.
I'm telling you, the train will go and the whole track will be full of while you're eating meals. It didn't even bother us then. It was unbelievable. The thing we lived through. I mean, the hygiene को तो अलग ही definition था उस वक्त. And then sometimes there would be floods in Orissa and there'll be floods. So we used to come from Jamshedpur to Chennai, right? Yeah. So the train will be diverted. So it'll be some 2 days trip will take 3 days, 6 days. It was phenomenal. People just were okay with it. No. क्या हो गया? Train delay हो गया. Instead of coming from Orissa, it's gone to Madhya Pradesh and it's going to come via some other place. Right. And train बीच में रुक जाती थी कभी कि यार वो the tracks got washed off. वहाँ के गांव के लोग आके खाना बना के खिलाते थे. So imagine that you're in the train for one whole day, just standing there. So people used to come out, make their own tents, chula lagaya, khana banaya. It was a world that I...
Bombay local trains?
Sorry, Bombay local trains are a whole different story, brother.
But it's different.
Like I came to realize that it was, if you're jam-packed in the railway compartment, and then if you had to want to wipe your face, this is the only place in the world कि you have to ask the guy standing beside you कि भाई मैं अपने pocket से खर्चे से निकालूं कि नहीं निकालूं? Because he thinks you're touching him out completely. Like भाई मैं निकाल रहा हूँ, हाँ निकाल. पहुँच लिया, हाँ मैं वापस रख ले. That's crazy, man. Never forget all these.
You've travelled enough?
Yeah, local trains I've travelled, but that's not the most fun part about train travel. I think when I was
local
young,
train मतलब in
Mumbai,
Mumbai University.
Yeah, no, not on our set. You think I'm way more privileged than I am actually. But I used to travel by train all the time. Local train all the time because it's so much faster, right? But the thing is, the best thing is like going to Goa for my football camps and taking that 1-2 day journey, right? It's like a fantasy world in that compartment. It's like you are with your friend are there and your teammate, right? But then the people sitting on the other and how that little compartment becomes like a family for that trip. You know, you share everything, you share stories, and then the train stops on the station and you get down for, samosa or something. And you exit that fantasy world for like a 5-minute break and then you come back and then there's that tension as well. कि छूट ना जाए. बस back of the head में कि जल्दी बना दो मैं जा रहा. So that was, it's incomparable, like when you travel, it's so isolated when you travel by plane. Nobody's talking to anybody.
As KK sir was talking, one of the most poignant scenes Irfan sir had done was in The Namesake, where in the train.
Yeah, I was going to say it to you later. No, I watched The Namesake and never traveled by train. But I did.
KK, you remember that earlier on, the tracks used to not be welded together.
Oh yeah.
So you used to hear this tadak, whole night. You hear the rhythm. It's like the whole night used to hear it. Then they started welding it. Then that noise went away. Then I used to not get to sleep because ये क्या है ठड़क नहीं जा रहा है ये.
और वो सम पे आता था when they change.
हाँ change. Yeah. Yeah, and at that speed you wonder how it changed. Yeah, really that normal है भैया.
Oh, another great train scene comes to you. One of your first works was Last Train to Mahakali with Anurag that you done, right?
Hey, don't worry, man. We are still talking about trains, so people will still relate.
No. I was
railway man.
I was thinking about the thing, we used to go for school trips and we used to be like, say, 50, 60 kids in like one compartment. And you used to stop at one station and the teachers and whoever used to tell you that we have only 1 minute to get off.
Correct.
So I remember the whole you had to 50, 60 people getting off in one day, you couldn't leave anything back.
Correct.
That sense of unity of amongst everyone was
and रात को bags चोरी हो जाते थे.
Correct.
Chain लेके बांध
दो. Yeah, you chain it up. Yeah.
चप्पल ले गया हमने. चप्पल चोरी हो जाती थी भाई. That was the best part. हम लोग वो तकिए के नीचे रखे थे चप्पल.
या चप्पल आगे निकल गई.
स्टेशन के बीच में जो है रिजर्वेशन कंपार्टमेंट में हो आप, लेकिन अनरिजर्व घुसते थे.
करेक्ट.
तो आते थे वैसा थोड़ा सा अंदर होने वजह we have no choice but to give them space to sit.
But there's an innate quality about being an Indian, about being unity that really reflects in train travel.
Right.
There's the quality of family, that everybody is family. That really reflects when you travel by train.
Yeah, a very good point. I think Indians are very comfortable in close physical proximity of strangers also.
Yes.
हम लोग को लाइन में एक दूसरे के साथ चिपक के करने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. तो बाद में हमारे
को इतने सारे हैं हम.
नहीं, फिर मैं कह रहा हूँ अब यूरोपियंस को देख लो, वो लोग ना अपने रिश्तेदारों के साथ भी इतना पास सबके नहीं बैठेंगे।
बट बाद में आजकल वो वेट टिश्यू वगैरह आने के बाद में कल्चर चेंज हो चुका है। ओह माय गॉड, यू नो, सो सब शुरू हुआ था, मतलब उस जमाने में था नहीं वो सब।
जैसे आप कह रहे हो अनरिजर्व्ड में, जहाँ भी 3 लोग बैठे थे, वहाँ 5 लोग चिपक के बैठ गए, उनको प्रॉब्लम नहीं था यार, मतलब मर्द मर्द के साथ है, औरत औरत है तो ठीक है, बट इट्स अ वेरी इनेन subcontinent quality कि okay with that kind of personal proximity.
सोते हुए आपको लगा किसी ने पैर शिफ्ट करे और कोई बैठ गया, देखा कौन है ये, आपको अंकल ने कहा कि
अभी तो फिजिकल
थोड़ा सा दो स्टेशन,
they should tie chadaras between the upper berth
and put bachchas in it,
put the kids in it. Yeah.
My God.
I mean seriously,
have you ever pulled a chain like to stop?
There was always such a strong urge.
Shooter
यार
इसको एक बार
500 रुपए का फाइन था
500
सिर्फ।
You have?
No. We used to touch it. Yeah. And then the best part is like हम लोग बहुत प्रेयर्स वगैरह धार्मिक टाइप के लोग, गोदावरी और कृष्णा में ना रात को हम लोग को पैसे फेंकने थे।
Oh yeah. This was another thing. Yeah.
That's another thing, coins फेंकते थे हम लोग यार, कि टुंग टुंग, you hear it, it was unbelievable. And we have seen in floods, safety norms of Indian Railways was a different standard compared to the rest of the world. It is a 100 feet bridge कि आप पानी ना ट्रेन के ठीक नीचे से फ्लो हो रहा है, किसी को कोई डर नहीं है कि यार ब्रिज विल गेट वॉश्ड आउट, ब्रिटिश वालों ने बांधा ठीक ही रहेगा, चल क्रॉस कर लो।
No, but just sheer like strength of the railways. Like in Bombay, I'm born and brought up in the same house, like where the railway track is like where these cameras are, like that close. And I remember like so I'm like immune to the sound of railways, because I remember we were doing the sound design for Railwaymen also. Like suddenly I would be like, yeah, we need a horn, and I'm watching the scene. I'd just be like, where did it go? Because I'm so immune to the fact that I hear it every day, every night. I remember like being in college, like during 2 very like tragic incidents with like I remember during 26/11 I was in college. I remember taking a train that night and coming back from college, no mobile phones at that time, and I remember like people in the train had already started like kind of saying that there's something going wrong in town, don't go, like everyone moving back to their houses, and how everyone was helping each other out. And then there was this train blast in 2005.
Yes.
I remember the coaches that kind of exploded, and really sad, like they came and stopped like right opposite my house. I remember my neighbor being the first person to take pictures and then send it to NDTV in those days, and put that news out there. But even in those days, I remember when that happened, we all went to see it, but the constant thing was that everyone, even in that time, like people just came together to help. That was the biggest thing to like kind of, I'm getting like goosebumps saying it, but I remember so clearly, like that spirit of like India, and that connection to the fact that this had happened was really like, that spirit was insane. And I think like it's in the good times, like sharing it as a family, and in the bad times, in the tragic times, both. It's insane. It's like remarkable.
It's amazing how much of joy we just derived in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The sheer joy, kind of one thing that brings India together. We
I'm
didn't
telling
realize.
you, it's like if you think about it, it's such a big part in our cinema also. Every memorable movie has a train scene. I'm not joking. Like it's.
मेरा भी कुछ संबंध है यार.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, last train to Mahakali.
Yes, I was going to talk to him about
that. When I came to Bombay as bachelor, I used to stay in a pad in railway colony with those trains passing by every 3 minutes.
I stay opposite the train tracks. I mean, everything, like you look at each thing, namesake, and
exactly.
like I'm even talking about like Yash Raj films, the famous running thing of going and saving up on the. Everyone has everything has a train connection.
My first debut film.
Yeah.
We fall in love standing on opposite sides of the train.
Big
Big aspect of it. Tanu versus Manu mein hote.
Everything has a train. It's remarkable.
You touched a very sensitive subject. Nice.
Most fun we've had.
Thank you so much, everybody. All the best.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Babil.